Happy Easter. Welcome to this live streamed worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I'm Reverend Michelle Buheit, and I am so glad that you have joined us this Easter morning. If you've been waiting for us to arrive live on YouTube, we had a few technical difficulties because the whole world is lovingly watching children and grandchildren hunt for Easter eggs in their attic or whatever they're doing. So we are recording this so that you can have the service in its entirety. Many of us are still pretty new to online worship, and some of you may be joining for the very first time today. And so let me orient you to our service. All of the service participants are in our homes and working through the magic of Zoom. I'd like to give many thanks to all of our technical support folks who are working behind the scenes, and also to our Director of Faith Development, Angela Warren, her daughter Chelsea, and our ministerial intern, Christina Church, who will also be participating in this service with me this morning. We learned last week that sometimes technical glitches happen, and we're getting pretty good at troubleshooting and continuing. I now turn things over to Christina to share our opening reading.
Good morning, and thank you for being with us. The opening reading for this morning is by poet Mark Nepo, called The Courage of the Seed. All the buried seeds crack open in the dark the instant they surrender to a process they can't see. What a powerful lesson is the beginning of spring. All around us, everything small and buried surrenders to a process that none of the buried parts can see. And this innate surrender allows everything edible and fragrant to break ground into a life of light that we call spring. In nature, we are given quietly countless models of how to give ourselves over to what appears dark and hopeless, but which ultimately is an awakening that is beyond all imagining. This moving through the dark into blossom is the threshold to God. As a seed buried in the earth cannot imagine itself as an orchid or a hyacinth, neither can a heart packed with hurt imagine itself loved or at peace. The courage of the seed is that once cracking, it cracks all the way.
I will now light our chalice. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Angela Warren will now share A Time for All Ages.
I'm joined here by my daughter, Chelsea.
Good morning.
And it's a time to sow seeds. Sometimes we save seeds from long ago, and we save them until it's time to sow. In our Planet Thursday activities, we had a plan to do a sprouting workshop, and Christina gathered a whole bunch of little containers for us to do that with. And now the use of them has become transformed into little baby greenhouses. I actually started some seeds at church last week, and they've already done this. So I'm going to demonstrate how you can do this at home if you have seeds of any kind. It's okay. First you take the bottom of the container and a sharp object. This all here came from our caretaker, Chris Berry. Thanks, Chris. Put something underneath, maybe a seed catalog that you can poke holes through, and use the elbow grease and poke a whole bunch of holes in the bottom of the container so that the water can drain through and your seeds won't drown. And soil. About an inch or so. You want to try? Do it together. And what I'm going to be planting today, a lot of you probably remember we did a couple activities with found objects before Christmas time. We made mandalas with found objects from the earth, and we also created wreaths for Christmas time. And while we were engaged in these activities, a whole bunch of the seeds fell and mixed themselves up. And so now I have a mix that I'm calling the UUCA mystery seeds. See? So I'm just going to spread these here. Some are from as far away as the National Arboretum in Washington, D.C., from American bittersweet vine from Plattsburgh. I have sumac from the backyard of our beloved church campus. There's irises from my friend's garden in here. And I'm just going to put so many. So, seeds need soil. We're going to cover them up. Just pat them down gently. We don't want them to be too afraid. And they also need water. We will water them lightly. And then replace the top, and then this will become a little greenhouse if we set it out on a big windowsill. We happen to have a whole slew of big windowsills up in the Faith Development Wing, so we're going to be growing some plants. What else do seeds need, Chelsea?
I think seeds need sunshine.
Oh. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamt I held you in my arms. When I awoke, dear, I was mistaken, and I hung my head and I cried. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. It's been said that Unitarian Universalism is a religion that puts its faith in you, trusting each individual to engage in the spiritual journey and to reach our own conclusions about spiritual matters. We do that in beloved community as we support one another in faith and in friendship. In that spirit, this congregation has created a covenant, a sacred promise of how we strive to be with one another. Please join us in speaking our covenant. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world.
I am going to be sharing with you something in just a minute, because the UU Church of Amherst is a very special place, made up of very special people. Here's one of our very special people, member and trustee Scott Harrigan, to share what church means to him.
Hello friends, Scott Harrigan here, walking around our backyard, the Debbie Waterhouse Ecology Center, checking out the new rebirth of life during this pause in our national life. This truly is our little corner of our big blue boat home. And you can see the labyrinth here behind me. It's made it through the long cold winter, largely intact. Labyrinths are interesting because it seems to be a connection of many paths that lead to the center. Theologically, we believe in that. At the same time, it's a single path that leads to an integrated whole. And it reminds me of the different paths we have in our lives, our work life, our family lives, or even our community life. And we always need an organizing principle to make sure that we keep those in proper perspective so that they don't compete or conflict. And that center for me is the church. It is a lens through which I focus on the needs of the many in addition to the needs of my family and myself. And this church is the only church that I could ever belong to. It is a lifeline if you are someone who needs a community, a church in this world, but you don't believe in God. So it is very important to me. And Unitarian Universalism as a faith community has a unique voice and message for this country and the world. We have been at the forefront of progressive and humane movements in this country, from abolition to a living wage. Let's just say that we've been punching way above our weight for a long time, and we continue to do so today. And we have been doing the work, walking the talk in our own community here in Western New York. We were the second church in Western New York and the first suburban church to have a banner that proclaimed that Black Lives Matter. We don't follow, we lead. We led again with a little food pantry in the suburbs where want is often hidden away in shame. We have a lot to be proud of, and I know we will continue to make ourselves proud by continuing to do right as we are able to see the right. And that's why I'm a member. I could not get behind a faith I didn't believe in and that I didn't try to bring to life in the world we live in. For me and for many of you, this is truly a chosen faith. And this church runs on its members who indeed bring it to life. Those who do the work and those who pay the bill. Most of us do both. We need all of your treasures, not just money, but your time and efforts. But yes, also your money. I know I have tried to give of both myself and my money to keep this church going. We should all do what we can. Today is Easter Sunday, and it is also the last day of the pledge drive, and I am asking you to give generously. If you haven't given before, start today by going to our website, uuamherst.org, and making a pledge in any amount. It is easier for us and often easier for you too to give money on a monthly basis through your credit card or automatic withdrawal from your bank account. This spreads your pledge out over the air, which makes it much more affordable, and it evens out the payments to the church so that we can all depend on the income. If you haven't given before, $25 a month is a great start. But whether it's 10 or 15 or even $5 a month, it is something, and it is something you can build on for the future. If you have been giving, I ask that you consider increasing that amount. Helen and I are. Whether you can give a lot or a little, everyone contributing what they can makes this little light of ours burn brighter. So I'm asking you to give today what you can, but to give generously. As spring continues to spring upon us, take joy in the increasing fullness of the sun. Take comfort in our beloved community. Find peace in your family. Happy Easter, everyone.
Today ends the pledge campaign, although it is certainly possible to pledge your financial support after today. We've received just under 152,000, and which is fantastic. We still have 53 pledges outstanding, and with just a little under $40,000 still needed to meet our goal. I'm sure we'll get there this week with your help. If we were gathered together in our beloved chapel, this would be the moment when the ushers would come forward and pass the offering baskets around, and we can do that virtually. Simply go to our website, uuamherst.org, and follow the giving link provided in your order of service. It was emailed, or see the chat box. We now have an opportunity to go back in time to another Easter. Enjoy this offertory.
Now let our chalice. For foolish hearts that dare to love, foolish minds that dare to explore, foolish spirits that dare to dream, we light this flame.
We are foolish creatures, ever extending our hearts to one another. Like moths to the flame, we are burned again and again. May we learn to only ever approach one another with our arms clasped behind our backs, or perhaps arms outstretched, leaning heart forward, loving heart forward, trusting in the promises we make, are destined to break, and in foolish hope beyond reason, promises we make again and again. Come forward as you wish.
Easter Bunny. I think she hears the baby.
Yeah, she's looking at the baby. Did you get your candy? Yeah. That's the good stuff, huh? Oh yeah. Wow, you got candy and toys? There's the Easter Bunny. What do you think?
Who've generously supported this religious community, we thank you. And now, in response, if you'll join me in saying the words to our offering response. We pick fruit from trees we did not plant. We drink water from wells we did not dig. This is as it should be, so long as we dig and plant for those who will come after us. And now, if you're willing and able, please join me in singing one of our favorite hymns, number 123 in the gray hymnal, Spirit of Life. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hands, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. I'd like to share with you now a reading by Clarissa Pinkola Estes from her book, The Faithful Gardener. I know that those who are in some ways and for some time shorn of belief in life itself, that they ultimately are the ones who will come to know best the Eden that lies underneath the empty field, that the new seed goes first to the empty and open places, even when that open place is a grieving heart, a tortured mind, or a devastated spirit. What is this faithful process of spirit and seed that touches empty ground and makes it rich again? Its greater workings I cannot claim to understand, but I know this. Whatever we set our days to might be the least of what we do if we do not also understand that something is waiting for us to make the ground for it. Something that lingers near us, something that loves us, something that waits for the right ground to be made so that it can make its full presence known. I am certain that as we stand in the care of this faithful force, what has seemed dead is dead no longer. What has seemed lost is no longer lost. That which some have claimed impossible is made clearly possible. And what ground is fallow is only resting and waiting for the blessed seed to arrive on the wind with all God's speed. And it will. You know, I often turn to one of my favorite authors, Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, a Jungian analyst and also a world-famous storyteller, and the author of Women Who Run with the Wolves. Maybe you're familiar with that one. Whenever my spirit is aching or my well seems to have run dry, I tend to react emotionally to situations first, and then later I'm able to step back and take a more intellectual approach. And so because of that aspect of my temperament, it's often stories about people that allow me to make meaning out of things that are happening in my world. Things like the situation here of the coronavirus that we're all responding to. And I know that not everyone is like that. We all have different ways of responding to stressful situations. And your first response might be very different than mine, and that's okay. I'm here to tell you that all of the things, all of the ways that we are responding to this are okay. All the feelings that you're having are okay and right for you. For me, though, I tend to need to process my emotions first, and so I reach for stories. And all of our human relations are hardwired, really, to learn through the telling of stories. And I thought immediately of one of Dr. Estes' stories that I am familiar with, The Faithful Gardener. It's a powerful prescription for how to bring new life back to living things. The Faithful Gardener is a story about a resurrection of sorts. It's about the coming back to life of Clarissa's adopted uncle, Jovar, who is a refugee from Hungary, who arrived in the upper Midwest during the years following World War II, very traumatized and wounded spiritually. And I love this book because it talks about the practical steps that it takes for humans after their world has collapsed in some way, after their psyches have been exposed to collective trauma and their bodies have been ravaged by deprivation or disease. And simultaneously, it tells the story of a rising of a forest, a beautiful Northwoods forest, out of a devastated field of rubble. The uncle clears the way for the forest to grow, but he doesn't plant anything. He just prepares the ground. And somehow the field and the uncle heal each other together through time. So that's how it is with us, I think. Seeds grow in the ground, in the earth. And so preparing the ground is important work, as Angela showed us earlier. And we may think that there's just the story of the individual seed, a single plant that's struggling to find sunlight and air and water, the earth that it needs. But in The Faithful Gardener, the emphasis is on the hospitality of the entire ecosystem, an entire interconnected web, we might say, that works to restore this grand forest of vitality to what seems to be an empty, barren, devastated field. Estes writes about this. She says, "So we left the land bare so that the seeds would know to find their way to it. They would be carried in the mouths of small animals who might know this field was waiting. They would drop the seeds here. The raccoon would eat and deposit what was left in the field. The deer, scratching against a post, would release the seeds riding in her pelt. The weather in the sky and the air would join together to bring in seeds on the wind as well. New seed goes first to the empty field." What does this mean for us? It means that we don't necessarily need to run around collecting ideas and skills and objects when we need restoration. It means that we're allowed to rest, that we're allowed to empty ourselves out, and we can find ways to keep our hearts open to healing that will come. This interconnected web of relationships is always here. It's always holding us in love and care. We need only be still and allow these seeds of healing and transformation to find us. Now, in many ways, we have been stripped bare by this pandemic. Our livelihoods, our relationships, our rhythms of daily life have been violently disrupted. And somehow we are like that empty field, not sure what will live or thrive when the growing season comes back to us. But this is the time when our faith matters most. As we continue to distance ourselves in order to save lives, we need to believe that this fallow ground is only resting. And when the time comes, life and love and companionship will thrive here again. That this faithful force that is life has held us and is holding us and will hold us all of our lives. We need to believe in the courage of the seed and also in the hospitality of the ground. We need to have faith in spring, in that life force that comes around again and again and again to heal and renew the ground in us and in the desecrated places on our planet. We need to believe with all our hearts that these sore, tired, and grieving places in our hearts and in our landscapes are the empty places where new seeds will come on the wind. So this spring, I invite you to do as Uncle Jovar did, and as the Buddha did in his time of trial, and as all wounded and hurting creatures know how to do. Touch the earth. Reach for the earth. Remember that to be a faithful gardener of the Spirit, you do not even need to plant the seeds if you do not have the energy to do so. Like the lilies of the field, you may simply rest. Trust in the good hospitality of the ground. Be still and know that this too, this time in the dark, is sacred time. Rest in the faith that the seeds of renewal will be carried on the wind with all God's speed when the time comes.
Now Chelsea and I will share a responsive reading. It's number 628, called Rolling Away the Stone by Sarah Morris Campbell. In the tomb of the soul, we carry secret yearnings, pains, frustrations, loneliness, fears, regrets, worries.
In the tomb of the soul, we take refuge from the world and its heaviness.
In the tomb of the soul, we wrap ourselves in the security of darkness.
Sometimes this is a comfort. Sometimes it is an escape.
Sometimes it prepares us for experience. Sometimes it insulates us from life.
Sometimes this tomb life gives us time to feel the pain of the world and reach out to heal others. Sometimes it numbs us and locks us up with our own concerns.
In this season, where light and dark balance the day, we seek balance for ourselves.
Grateful for the darkness that has nourished us, we push away the stone and invite the light to awaken to the possibilities within us and among us, possibilities for new life in ourselves and in our world.
I read an article in The Guardian online, written by Rebecca Solnit. She wrote, "The word crisis means, in medical terms, the crossroads a patient reaches, the point at which she will either take the road to recovery or to death. The word emergency comes from emergence or emerge, as if you were ejected from the familiar and urgently need to reorient." And I wondered, how will we emerge from this tomb life, this sequestration to protect and save lives, our own and others. We have definitely been ejected from the familiar, and we urgently need to reorient ourselves, our lives, our priorities to a new reality waiting to emerge. Will we emerge soft and supple, like the butterfly's transformation from caterpillar through the melting in the chrysalis? Or will we emerge hard and small, the seed that couldn't bear to be opened, couldn't bear to let go of unexpressed and therefore unmet expectations? I love Mark Nepo's reflection on the courage of the seed. All the buried seeds crack open in the dark the instant they surrender to a process they can't see. We only crack open when we are able to surrender to a process we can't see. We only crack open when we are willing to trust that the passage through death will lead us into life. The mythos of Easter, the story writ large, is the promise that trusting the passage through death will indeed lead to life. Resurrection as emergence rather than resuscitation. Emergence is not the same as reappearance. We emerge changed. We no longer live the ordinary life in the ordinary way. Trusting death as the portal to life, trusting a process we do not fully understand, but are willing to surrender to, how will we be changed? How will we choose to live as emergent beings? What kind of world do we wish to live in? For the first time, we can see the possibilities of choosing another path. The Himalayas are visible to a portion of India for the first time in 30 years because the haze of pollution has lifted in this forced pause in an industrialized, mechanized way of living. Dolphins have returned to the waterways of Venice. The earth itself is responding to our tomb life by coming back to life. If we return to the old way, the way of just a month ago, it will not because we are unable to change course, but rather that we do not have the will to do so. We've proven that change is possible. We've demonstrated that we have the capacity to radically change how we live in relationship with the earth and with one another. We've proven that we are not helpless and that we have the capacity to make fundamental changes in our priorities and how we will live. There are more changes to be made, but not ones that take us backward, not ones that fill our skies with toxic haze. We've had our eyes opened. We can never unknow what we now know. Our eyes are opened, but are our hearts? We know that medical professionals are essential to our well-being, but we've learned that so many others are also essential. Grocery workers, truck drivers, mail carriers, and all those who have been relentlessly undervalued and underpaid. Rebecca Solnit wrote, "The word crisis means, in medical terms, the crossroads a patient reaches, the point at which she will either take the road to recovery or to death." We are at a turning point. The Greek word metanoia appears in the New Testament to describe what happens when we invite the light to awaken us to the possibilities within us and among us, possibilities for new life in ourselves and in our world. Metanoia means a change in one's way of life resulting from penitence or spiritual conversion. We are people of the seventh principle. We believe that all life is connected, that we are part of an interdependent web, But we haven't always lived like that's true. This forced separation, this chrysalis state that the whole world is caught up in, is an opportunity for us to be changed at a cellular level. Because all the buried seeds crack open in the dark the instant they surrender to a process they can't see. If humanity as a collective can crack open and surrender to the process of transformation, we can emerge from this tomb life fundamentally changed. Imagine the scene as we all emerge from our homes, from homeless shelters, from another long shift at the loading dock or the ER, and breathing in the sweet morning air. The singing of the birds no longer dulled by the constant hum of traffic. No tang of exhaust fumes in that first full breath. This is not a pipe dream. I'm sure that the people of India just figured they would never see the Himalayas from their homes again. But in just a few short weeks, the haze has lifted. I'm sure the people of Venice used to speak with wistfulness of the old days when dolphins could be seen in the canals. But in just a few short weeks, the dolphins have returned. Unitarian Universalist minister and lyricist Kendall Gibbons has shared a portion of her Easter homily that I'd like to share with you. It's just a snippet. This is what Kendall wrote. The essence of Easter is transformation. It is never about things going back to the way they were before. The new life of spring is new. It's not last year's leaves. Those are over and done. Even the empty tomb of the Gospels is not a sign that Jesus and his entourage are going to resume their former life. In fact, that way of things is finished. It is only a radically new understanding of how to be a community together that can save them from dissolution and despair. This Easter, as never before in many of our lifetimes, we are invited to seek the strength to let go of an old way of life and discover what else might be possible. Friends, the coming days, weeks, months, possibly even years are likely to be difficult, an extended chrysalis state, a long coming to fruition for broken open seeds. But if we have the will and the resiliency to want something better, something life-giving and life-sustaining for ourselves and for those who will follow us, we can awaken the light within us. We can choose life and health for earth and all beings. May it be so. May we make it so. Each week, we affirm the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. Those are three concentric circles, with the light of truth being the closest as an individual endeavor. The warmth of community is the circle that includes others in our immediate circle, and the fire of commitment reaches out into the larger world. At this time in our service, we consider those in our immediate circle and beyond. We hold one another in care and trust that we too will be held. Cherishing that warmth, please join your hearts with mine in the spirit of prayer. O Spirit of life and renewal, we have wintered enough, mourned enough, oppressed ourselves enough. Our souls are too long cold and buried, our dreams all but forgotten, our hopes unheard. We are waiting to rise from the dead. In this, the season of steady rebirth, we awaken to the power so abundant, so holy, that returns each year through earth and sky. We will find our hearts again and our good spirits. We will love and believe and give and wonder and feel again the eternal powers. The flow of life moves ever onward through one faithful spring and another, and now another. May we be forever grateful. Alleluia. Amen.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
We now extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Travel light and travel easy, till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. We receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown. This ends our worship service. Go in peace, my friends. Go in peace.